Second, if you tell somebody it's 2,450 square feet.
You mean they do not allow it with new construction?
They do not allow it, period.
Why is that?
Because they were sued. A buyer came in, the agent made representations that this property was X number of square feet. They bought the property, found out later that it was not, and they sued everybody. They sued the buying agent, the listing agent, both offices, MLS, and they sued everybody. So now MLS does not allow you to put square footages on there. You will see them every now and then, and you might or might not see it be removed because
disappear.
It depends on how many fines they want to
It's
pay.
so bizarre.
Right.
It's like the one question people, you know.
That's because for so long, people, including agents, and this is big in other parts of the country, where they sell based on a square foot price. Okay, we had a really, really hard time when we first started here in Wyndham. People said, okay, hypothetically, you got 2,000 square feet, and you're basically selling with the sale prices at $200 a square foot. You know, that's in line with all of the other new construction in town. You cannot base this property or any of our properties on what else is out there. There is no comparison. We are the only ones in the city doing what we're doing. We are the only ones going, you know, to the extreme of a 2x6, you know, and covering the outside, and you know, all of these things add up. So it's a different product. You're not comparing apples to apples. It's apples and grapefruits usually. So if somebody like tries to take you down that road of, oh, well that is about, you know, such and such a square foot. If that's how they want to look at it, you really can't change their mind. But you got to get the value.
Yeah, could you
across
say
to them.
something like, well, there's value per square foot, there's more value per square foot in this property, and then talk about some of it.
Right.
That we can say something like that.
Right, and we do have a list of advantages versus the competition for Wyndham, Riverside, and we'll have to do one for Venetian also, but it's basically the same thing. But yeah, you don't, if you start getting into square footages on the other side of the spectrum here, once you get past that from a buyer and agent standpoint, when you get to an appraiser is going to come in and they're going to calculate it differently. Okay, usually you base a square footage on this wall here to this wall here, because this is the middle of the building between the two units, and then front to back. You do not include the garage. Garage is not a living space, but you include all the other living spaces. But appraisers, agents, some developer, everybody calculates square footages differently. Our architect, we do not take these off ourselves. We do not. We have the architect who designed the building give us the square footages with and without the garage. We use the number without the garage. The garage is not a living space. So if we say this unit is 2,436 square feet, okay, based on what our architects who designed the building have calculated. And then they go to a lender who calls an appraiser comes in and says, oh, it's actually 2,399 square feet. People are going to flip. You said it was X number of square feet. My appraiser is saying this. You can't get the general public to understand that it's just like taking your car to get an oil change. Most garages are going to follow the same procedure. They're just going to do it different. You know, and that's what happens here. That's why we're always, it's about 2,400 square feet or about 1,900 square feet or about 3,000 square feet. Because we don't know how it's going to be calculated.
When we toured the house Michael was doing in Highland Park, and he spaced these, remember, farther apart.
24 inches center.
So,
Are
this is 24 inches, and his was 24 inches?
Yeah.
Okay, so that saves
You're thinking
cost
he was
for the developer because you're using less lumber.
well. What you were looking at were interior walls; they weren't exterior walls. Okay. So an interior wall, it isn't a thermal element, it's just a decorative element. The only thing that's gonna go in those walls is sound insulation, because we put all sound insulation in the floors and the interior walls, so that you're not hearing, if you're in a bedroom, you're not hearing in the bathroom or hearing the laundry. Okay. From a thermal envelope standpoint, the more studs you have in the wall, the more thermal breaks you have. So the less successful performance you're going to have of that building because of the thermal break. Because when you have your insulation here, okay, then you come to the stud. That's a thermal break before you get to the next insulation. So every time you go across this, you're breaking the thermal
So this is
envelope.
the widest you can go with code on an
It's the widest that you would want to go. From a code standpoint, I think the 24 inches is the most. Don't quote me on that because I'm not in that. I don't follow the code anymore like I really should. But
And the inside wall, would there be any code for needing them to be closer together
No.
for a support wall or
no,
anything?
because there are no interior load-bearing walls here.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
If it
Michael's
was,
yeah.
yeah, and there is one across the way. I'll show you how it's determined if it is going to be a structural.
Okay.
We know it's going to be a structural when the building's framed, because if it's a structural element holding the house up, it's going to be there from the beginning.
Okay.
Okay, otherwise it would fall. I can show you right here. See this beam right here? See how it's sitting on this piece, and then it's attached to this beam over there? That's a structural element. That's why I said, if somebody wanted to change the floor plan, I can do anything they want to do on the inside. I cannot change the stair locations because there's structural elements there. Okay. If there's a structural element there and they want to do something like what we're going to see across the way here, I'll tell you what my thought process is. I'm like being proactive when people come in to buy that unit and what they may or may not want to do, and how I'm already in my head saying, how am I going to achieve this based on, the experience from before and what people want. Well, let's go next door and take a look at the A unit. While we're here, I wanted to show you, if you notice the bay windows or any kind of element that is cantilevered off of the main wall, this is a thermal break also underneath the house. Not from the vertical plane, but from the horizontal plane. So when the guys are framing this out, this is all being insulated here and Tyvek wrapped around before the board goes on the outside. Otherwise, you would step over here and you'd feel all the cold or the heat coming through. So those types of things are done from the exterior before the buildings are finished, or as they're being finished on the exterior.